Super Bowl mania is here again, and whether or not you're a devoted fan, a long-suffering sideliner, or simply and blissfully oblivious, maybe you're going to the movies tonight, I don't know. But no matter what, the Super Bowl offers some fascinating and some relevant lessons for you and me about living how? About living triumphantly, especially when we're encountering obstacles. In fact, there's a rather well-known early New Thought writer, Florence Scovel Shinn. Many of you have heard of her and heard me quote her before. She wrote this book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. The Game of Life and How to Play It. So practical. Well, today we're talking about the game of life as it relates to the game of football. There's 6 spiritual living lessons from the Super Bowl football game that I want you to keep in mind as you're watching the game. If you are watching the game, I want you to take notes and be paying attention. Because, see, it'll be like going to church a second time today. So, if you are, number one, if you are in the game, the more you understand about it, the better equipped you are. Makes sense, doesn't it? Basically, in life, as in football, too, there is an object and there are rules of the game. Now, when I talk about knowing more about football, I mean, a lot of it is a mystery to me still. There's jargon, there are hand signals that the officials, are they referees? Thank you. That they, and all kinds of things going on that are a mystery to me, but they better not be to the person playing the guys playing on the team, or the girls playing on the team. Because now we have women playing football too. But I don't think in the Super Bowl yet. But that day will come. But I digress. In life, as in football, there's an object to the game, and there are rules of the game. I mean, suppose if someone came in from another planet and they saw a football game in process. Obviously clueless. They wouldn't know what the object of the game was or what the rules were. It'd be just totally foreign to them. And to those uninformed eyes, it would seem torturous, violent, hurtful, adversarial, even like a battle. And then, mysteriously, everybody would be cheering wildly during the whole thing. And these visitors from outer space, not knowing or understanding the object or the rules of the game, would be incredulous to learn that this is being done for entertainment and for profit. So, of course, the more they could get to know about the game, football, the better the experience would be for them. Or maybe they'd say, I still don't want to have anything to do with it, but that would be another scenario. So it's about knowing what's going on. So in football, we know the object of the game is to get the football over the goal line while abiding by the rules of the game. Same with life. In her book, Florence Scovel Shinn writes about the game of life very simply, the object of life and the rules. She said, the object of the game of life is to see clearly our good and obliterate images to the contrary. That's it, she says. Now, the object of the game of life, in other words, is to live fully, live our possibilities, live our potential. That shouldn't be news to you. You hear it here every Sunday in some way. That is the object. Life wants to live. No matter what the life form, it's always about living, and that's the same with you. So that's the object of life. And then she goes on to say, the rules are very simple. There are 3. Number 1, you are what you think. Number 2, you get what you give. And number 3, you reap what you sow. And so the more we understand the object and the rules of life, the better we navigate our days, our challenges, and our opportunities. And by the way, the rules for living are not something that someone made up to make life more difficult for us. They are rooted in universal principles that exist for one purpose, to support all of life expression. Now, you know that every football player has a playbook. There are strategies for the most effective way of playing the game by the rules and accomplishing the object of the game. And if they're to be successful, they study it intensely, and they memorize much of it. And we've been provided with a playbook too. Information, strategies, and guidance for living life well. Well, actually, there are many versions of that playbook: the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, the Tao Te Ching, the Bhagavad Gita, and more. I would say the spiritual texts of all the great faiths have that same message. Science of Mind textbook, to which we refer, it's not our Bible, but it's a composite of what we teach and believe. It draws from all of those playbooks. And their common message and the instructions and the guidelines are the same. You are what you think, you get what you give, and you reap what you sow. So number one, comparing life with football, the better you understand the purpose and the point of the game and of life and the rules, the better goes the game, better goes your life. Now, number two, recognize that along with those rules, which are based on universal principles, there are consequences. And if you go against those rules, these consequences are inevitable. But they're not there to aggravate and annoy and distress you. Same in football. They exist to ensure in football a well-played game. And for us in life, they are there to affirm our greater fulfillment of our lives and our possibilities. Now, speaking for myself, my tendency is to often not want to play by the rules. I maybe want a shortcut, or I just feel rebellious and just try to make me follow those rules. Nobody here like that? I don't think so. Or sometimes we don't even know the rules, right? And the next thing, no matter what it is, whatever the reason, we have not abided by those rules, and we find ourselves in a situation. And when we're in that situation, our first impulse, of course, is to find someone to blame, something to blame for the situation that we created by ourselves, totally ourselves, whether intentionally or unintentionally, whether we ignored the rules or we were oblivious. Same thing in football. They don't care if you didn't know the rule or if it was accidental. You broke the rules, and whether or not it was intentional, the consequences or the penalties apply. And you hear those dreaded words, a flag on the play. Well, it's dreaded depending on which team gets the flag on the play. And it's interesting to remember, too, as I want us to understand there's nothing out there trying to punish us. These consequences, these penalties are impartial. They are not, in football, certainly they're impartial. Everybody's got the rule book. They're not personal. Don't take it personally. And they're certainly not a secret. Everybody's got the playbook, and they know the drill. The penalties usually involve, in a football game, some kind of setback, someone's sidelined, team loses some yardage. Well, in our lives, when we're experiencing consequences, sidelined, even a setback, we're tempted to think that we are being punished by some cranky entity out there. But the truth of the matter is, and this is one of the most important things I learned from my early training, my early spiritual mentor and teacher, is that we're not punished for our mistakes. We're punished by our mistakes. We're not punished because we messed up. We're punished because we just hadn't learned yet. We're experiencing the consequences. And so we're punished by our mistakes. It's a whole different feeling. So when this happens, when you find you've been sidelined, you're in a situation, you've been sidelined, you've got a setback, what did I do? Remember the rules and ask yourself these three questions then. What was I thinking? What was I giving or not? Remember, you get what you give. And what seeds was I sowing? What seeds of intention did I sow? And I can tell you, if we sit with those three questions, we'll get some insight about oh, okay, I can recalibrate now. I know how to do this now. It might not happen all at once. The learning curve sometimes might take a while, so be patient. But those are the ways to look at it instead of, why does this always happen to me? Or why do they always do that for me? Or no one ever understands me. You know what I mean? Now, in a football game, when there's a situation, when they have not played by the rules, there's been some kind of a setback, the football players don't stop, whine, complain, and dwell on the situation. More importantly, even than that, though, they keep playing, and later on, they will review them and learn from them, and learn from them. Now, same thing in life. There's no point of wasting time and energy and attention on whining over those situations where we've made mistakes, we feel like we've failed. If you're in the game, if you're growing and stretching as a person and spiritually, you're going to make mistakes. And you're going to experience the consequences. But, as the Chinese proverb says, fall down 9 times and get up 10. And just keep moving forward, like the song that Jay sang, moving in the right direction, heading in the right direction. Now, number 3, expect problems. Certainly in the game of life, sometimes we think that the goal in life is to have no more problems. And I love my dear father who used to say, you got a problem? Life is full of problems. That's not a problem. That's how you grow. That's how I'll help you figure it out. But don't waste your time wishing there were no problems. So, as someone wise said, it's not the problem that's the problem. It's what you think about the problem that's the problem. So problems, as I love to remember, and I bet you know this too, is they're opportunities dressed up in work clothes. Problems are opportunities dressed up in work clothes. They're opportunities for us to grow and to evolve. And I'm stating the obvious now, but a football game is, nothing but a series of problems. Obstacles at every turn. I mean, you got 2 teams against each other. We don't even question that. I mean, that's what makes the game interesting. The more problems, the more exciting. Tackles and blocks and interceptions and all those unexpected things. And no player is so naive as to go in and expect to just run the ball from one end to the other and make touchdown after touchdown. No. They expect problems. That's what it's all about. Bring them on. And they're prepared for them. And by the way, it's important to notice, too, that in their preparing for these problems and in navigating them in the game, they develop such mental and physical and emotional strength, endurance, flexibility, courage, determination, and self-confidence. And it would be good for us to view life in the same way, because life does consist of a series of problems that are meant to be solved or transcended. Sometimes you can't solve them, but very often, and many I haven't solved in my life, but what I have found is when I do my spiritual practice and take the higher view, I can transcend them. In other words, I recognize there's something in me that is greater than my problem. You are not your problem. You are always greater than your problem. And so that's what I mean by transcending the problem. Opportunities dressed up in work clothes. The Kabbalah, the Jewish mystical scripture, writes, problems are opportunities to discover the light, to discover God in and all around us. Wow. I don't know how evolved many of us are, that when we're up, toe-to-toe with a problem, to say, oh, hi, God. Hi, light. No, but it is the truth. In retrospect, often you will see that. Just reflect back on your own life. And isn't it true that as you work through problems and challenges, you've developed more endurance, more strength, more flexibility, more compassion, perhaps more courage, more determination, and more self-confidence. These are qualities that help you all the way along in life on the playing field of living your full potential. And the athletes are not daunted by problems at all. They know they're going to encounter them, but they're not daunted because they're so well prepared. They've had training, and their training is consistent, it's long-term, and it is intense, and it is physical, and it is mental. It is about being able to play their absolute best and about being protected against serious injuries, too. You've noticed they go into the game wearing all kinds of protective gear. What? Wouldn't even think about going in without it. Well, what a life lesson that is. Because like the players in the game, being physically and mentally fit and being protected, they're ready. And that's our lesson for life as well. How do we do that? How do we do that? By our spiritual practices. Whatever your spiritual practice is, and I'm not going to tell you what yours should be. I think the important thing is you know when you're engaged in a spiritual practice that connects you with that something that confirms to you there's something greater in me and around me that is guiding me and supporting me no matter what. And so for some it's prayer and meditation. For some it's what you read. It's what you listen to. It's how who we're talking to and what we're talking about. And it's an attitude for some of practicing the presence, of being still, as we were talking about in our chant and about before our chant. Just taking time to get off the fast track and be still. But whatever the spiritual practice, recognize that being done consistently. I don't mean you have to, like have a chart and do it every day and check off the boxes. But I do mean do it as regularly as you can, because there's something about that accumulates and that builds. I'm emphasizing that because players, they practice with consistency. That's why they know their stuff in their sleep. They could, they don't stop in the middle of the playing field or in the middle of a play or something. And what was that we were supposed to do again? No, they have gone over it so many times that they know it. They respond with lightning speed, because they have consistently studied and practiced, not just when they were in the mood and not just when they were, not too busy. They've done it rigorously. And for us in life, it's the same thing. Developing our own sense of spiritual practice does not have to be long. It doesn't have to be arduous. I think it should feel delicious. It should feel like, wow, like a breath of oxygen. Inspiring, uplifting. And when we do this consistently, we internalize all that we're exposing ourselves to. We're internalizing it, and it becomes a habit of thinking. And you may have noticed, as you have been doing your spiritual practice, that you almost, on some occasions, respond automatically with a positive response, with a creative response, with a response that says, well, I know there's something bigger at work here, almost without even having to think about it, because you have embodied that truth, those truths, those skills within you. So now, number 5, keep your eye on the ball. Did I do number 4? Well, that was the athletes are not. I didn't tell you it was number 4. Anybody keeping track? That we did do number 4. I just didn't tell you it was number 4. That's because the players practice and study. Okay, number 5. Keep your eye on the ball. Keep your attention focused in the direction you want to go. Again, back to the song that Jay sang, headed in the right direction. Keep your eye on the ball. I mean, that's rule number 1 in the game. No, if they aren't looking at the ball, forget about the rest of it. Vince Lombardi, that very famous football coach, said it this way. He said, this is what will happen with you if you don't keep your eye on the ball. He said, obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off the ball. Obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off the ball. So for us in life, I would say this is about not staring at the obstacles or the problem. Of course, when the problem occurs, it's like in your face. It gets all of our attention. But let's not keep staring at it as a problem. Instead, as the song said, keep looking forward, keep looking in the right direction. And knowing, and here's the important thing that sometimes takes a while to get, knowing there is a solution even if you cannot see it. There is a solution even if you cannot see it in the moment. Remember the biblical passage, faith is the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence, faith is the evidence of things not seen. And that truth is written in many forms, in many spiritual practices, in many self-help presentations. It's a truth of life. There's a solution, even if you can't see it, and that's what we want to keep our attention on. Deepak Chopra explains it this way. He says, one-pointed intention means absolutely refusing to allow obstacles to dissipate the focused quality of your attention. One-pointed intention means that you're not allowing obstacles to dissipate the focused quality of your intention. Have you noticed that you might start out the day all revved up? You've done your spiritual practice and nothing's going to stop me today. And then something happens. You hit a big speed bump or a detour. And you get preoccupied with it. And what he's saying is, don't let those things dissipate the quality of your intention that you started out with. You know how that feels, don't you? Have you ever? It's almost like a balloon, and you puncture it, and the air comes out. You started out the day knowing exactly your spiritual journey, and bring it on. And one of those little things happens, or one of those annoying people happens, and it's just like it gets the energy of that morning knowing is dissipated. And he's saying, yank yourself back. Put your attention on that, on the ball, on the goal, going in the right direction, not knowing what it might be, but knowing it's there. And don't let that detour, that speed bump, that problem dissipate what you know, Finally, number 6. In football, the progress toward the goal is most of the time incremental. There are 4 opportunities to gain 10 yards, and if so, then there are 4 more opportunities. And sometimes, of course, there's a heroic long pass or an amazing run, but fundamentally, it's pushing forward yard by yard by yard. And same in life. It's about being patient with the process. It's incremental, and I would say in almost every case, even if something really fabulous happens to you all of a sudden, chances are there have been incremental preparations along the way. Some you may not have even seen. But the important thing is to not be always looking for the instant fix, the instant answer, the instant solution. Celebrate every incremental bit of progress that you see. Shine a light on it and say, yeah, I see this, something's happening here. And have you noticed that in the football game, the players, despite the rules and the object of the game, they're creative and they're flexible in each moment about how to execute each move, right? And we don't always know. Now, some of you who are really, really diehard fans, you probably can predict some of the plays that they're going to use. But for a lot of us, it's kind of a surprise, and that's the point, is to keep the other team, off balance. And so there's that. We know where we're going, but we're not sure always just how it's going to happen. And that's what makes it so exciting, I think. Someone will say, well, I didn't expect him to do that play. All right, where did he come from? And it's the whole element of not knowing how, but never swerving from knowing what the end game is. And same in life. Oh, the same thing in life. How the creativity of spirit guides us. And we find we've achieved the fulfillment of our desires in ways we would never have imagined. I can look around this room and see almost all of you I've heard from in one way or another about, you wouldn't believe how this happened, but it was so good. And as long as we stay open to that and remember that, don't be attached to the how. And we need to remember that as a spiritual community as we're looking at a new location. There's more that we know about the end game. We know what we want to do. Would be in a location that better serves our mission, our ministry, and our presence. But how? My goodness, I would say, Albert, aren't there more question marks around the how than on the where we want to go? And so whatever the situation, collectively or individually in our lives, it's so wonderful to let go of the how. And as in, what was the Hansel and Gretel? Follow the breadcrumbs. Follow the breadcrumbs. So there you have it. Lots of spiritual lessons as you watch the Super Bowl. And wherever you are on the playing field of your life, remember this spiritual truth by our wonderful Dr. Ernest Holmes, the architect of our philosophy and teaching, who said, there is a divine urge within, ever pushing us forward to the goal of greater expression. So simple. That urge is within us, ever pushing us forward to the goal of greater and greater expression. So let's keep headed in the right direction, and as Jay's going to anchor this now along with Bob, is do it one step at a time instead of looking at the mountain. Namaste.